The Democratic Republic of Congo has warned that reemergence of the M23 rebellion in the east could endanger a deal with the opposition intended to lead to a presidential election this year. In a letter to the President of the UN Security Council, Congo's government detailed a series of M23 incursions that began in November and accelerated last month. DRC said the fiscal strain will imperil the political agreement and perturb the electoral process itself. Lack of money was one of the reasons cited by President Joseph Kabila's government for its failure to hold elections last year as scheduled. M23 was Eastern Congo's most powerful rebel group until its defeat by Congolese and UN forces in 2013. Many of its fighters fled into neighboring Uganda and Rwanda, where they've been kept in camps. The Congolese army this week said M23 fighters had captured and killed 3 army officers. An M23 resurgence could spark wider conflict in the region that is an ethnic tinderbox straddling national regional borders and which has seen decades of war. A deal brokered by the Catholic bishop still stands, although the death of veteran opposition leader Etienne Tshisekedi could lead to uncertainty.
They may look menacing, but with a little guidance from professional handlers, you just may gather the courage to take one of the century-old crocodiles at Kachikali Crocodile Pond for a little walk.
Some of them will be even touching, crying, but some will be touching with, happiness and joy. They won't even believe that they're touching a crocodile.
It's what makes Kachikali one of the top tourist attractions in Gambia's capital, Banjul. But these days, the crocodile pond is quiet.
Everything went.
So is the monkey park. Banjul's beaches are deserted, hotels are mostly vacant, and souvenir stores are empty. It all began when former leader Yahya Jammeh refused to give up power after he lost the presidential election in December. That led to a state of emergency and political turmoil that forced thousands of tourists to rush back home.
It seems that the entire world was coming to an end.
Abdoulaye Haidara, head of the tourism board, says Gambia averages around 4,000 tourists a week during its peak month of January. Almost all of them evacuated within days.
That was the beginning of the nightmare that we went through.
To this day, a tourism industry that generates 20% of the government's revenue is still suffering. But with new President Adama Barrow's peaceful return from exile, tourism is starting its comeback.
Right now is the perfect opportunity for us.
The tourism board plans to ask the new government for an increase in advertising money to help convince travelers why they should come back to Gambia's pristine beaches, nature reserves, and exotic tourist attractions. Gambia's tourist attractions are certainly fun, but many say Gambia's best feature are its people. Some of the most hospitable, most fun-loving people you'll ever meet.
I think it's the way we are brought up.
It's why Gambia is called the smiling coast of West Africa.
There is no country on earth that is so peaceful.
So peaceful, even the crocodiles seem friendly. Reza Seya, Al Jazeera, Banjul, Gambia.
This week on Africa Weekly, we head to Kenya, where tensions are rising between landowners and cattle herders. Then we visit a school in South Africa which has been set up for refugee children. And finally, we look to Gabon, where Egypt take on Cameroon in the final of the Africa Cup of Nations. But first, a summary of the stories that made the headlines this week. African leaders reacted to US President Donald Trump's immigration ban targeting citizens from 7 predominantly Muslim countries, including Libya, Somalia and Sudan. Trump claims the measure is to help fight radical Islamic terrorists. Condemned by the international community, the ban's a major cause for concern on the streets of Mogadishu.
I will go back to the US very soon, but I am afraid that I will be arrested in the airport when I get back there. Because being of Somali origin, coming back from Somalia, I'm hunted. Because the president ordered to especially target people from Somalia.
Morocco has been welcomed back into the African Union after leaving in 1984. 39 of the AU's 54 member states agreed on the move.
Il est l'heure de rentrer à la maison.
It's time to go home, at a time when the kingdom is among the most developed African nations, and when a majority of member states wish for our return. We chose to get back to our family.
Nous avons choisi de retrouver la famille.
African leaders elected Chad's Foreign Minister Moussa Faki Mahamat as president of the Commission, and the rotating presidency of the AU passed from Chadian President Idriss Déby to Guinean head of state Alpha Condé. Congolese opposition leader Etienne Tshisekedi died in hospital on Wednesday in Brussels. The announcement of his death was met with sadness and apprehension as political negotiations continue to establish a power-sharing deal agreed after President Joseph Kabila refused to step down in December.
President Etienne Tshisekedi, who just left us, devoted his whole life to implement democracy in our country, and he gave us the mission to fight to obtain a change in power, and we'll continue this fight.
Less than a week after the return of President Adama Barrow to the Gambia, 10 of 18 ministers belonging to his new government have been sworn in. Mai Fati, Barrow's special advisor, was appointed Minister of the Interior, and Issatu Toure, who heads up the Trade and Business Ministry, is one of only 2 women in Barrow's government. 15 miners were rescued Sunday in the province of Geita in northwestern Tanzania after they became trapped 35 metres underground when a makeshift gold mine collapsed. They were trapped for at least 2 days. Mineshaft collapses are frequent in Tanzania as workers often lack the required tools and safety precautions. French singer M was in Mali for the Festival Acoustique Bamako to present the world premiere of his new album, L'Amo Mali. He joined Malian artists Toumani and Sidiki Diabete.
Thousands of cattle graze in the Muji Conservancy, 130 kilometres from Mount Kenya. But the elephants, buffalo and impala have disappeared. That's because last January, local herders cut through the fences, bringing in around 30,000 cows, sheep and goats, with devastating consequences.
20 years of a lot of time, effort, sweat, a lot of money. It's fallen apart in 2 weeks, literally destroyed.
Attacks on wild animals have become more common as competition for land intensifies in the region of Laikipia. To resolve the situation, some reserves have set up grazing agreements with the local communities. Loisaba Conservancy allows herders to graze a certain number of cows on their land in exchange for a small sum of money.
We are neighbours with Loisaba. We have a stake in it. But some do not care about being good neighbours. I'm willing to pay to feed my cows and help my environment.
But during times of drought, this exchange can quickly break down. And if the conservancies aren't protected, some fear they'll become deserts.
There's a pretty apocalyptic kind of vision that will end up literally with lots of people, pastoralists, communities, left with no rangeland whatsoever to access. Livestock dying off, no food because they rely on their livestock for their food and all the rest of it. We'll see charcoaling of the bushes, and the terrible vision to me is the guy sitting in a desert with a begging bowl waiting for aid food.
Local leaders have stoked tensions by encouraging herders to graze the land they say belongs to them. And with elections due in August, few expect the government to step in to resolve the disputes.
Are you taking?
3 years ago, Claude couldn't speak English. This 12-year-old from the Democratic Republic of Congo spoke only French when he arrived in South Africa with his family. Now he takes classes every afternoon with other refugee children.
Here I learn everything. English, maths, all that I'll need for when I leave to go to a normal school.
These children come from various African countries, such as the DRC, Burundi, Zimbabwe and Eritrea. They are denied access to public schools as they lack the legal paperwork and the financial means, and struggle with language barriers. The Sacred Heart College, an expensive private school, opens its empty classrooms to them after hours, in a program called 3 to 6.
We became a multiracial school in 1976, and we consider the treatment of refugee children in South Africa to be a new social injustice.
Some of the children have experienced xenophobia, ranging from insults to attacks, as the Rainbow Nation struggles to accommodate its many asylum seekers. A problem the teachers understand all too well. They are refugees themselves who can't work in mainstream South African schools.
Thanks to this program, we can give our best being refugees, because they are our children. I feel proud to help these children, refugees, like me, for their future.
Every year, roughly a quarter of the children from 3 to 6 integrate into mainstream schools. A model that has already inspired a European volunteer who worked here, who went on to establish a similar program for Syrian children in Germany.
Absent from the last 3 editions and winners of the 3 before that, Egypt have their eye on the 2017 Africa Cup of Nations title. The Pharaohs have only conceded 1 goal throughout the tournament, thanks to veteran goalkeeper Essam Al-Hadari. At 44 years old, he's the oldest ever at the Cup of Nations. For Egypt's coach, the title is theirs for the taking.
Here we are, let's call it my grand final. The emotion I have is for this fantastic team. When I talk about the team, I'm talking about those here, those who didn't come, and those who've taken part in all the knockout matches of the African Cup. So let's hope that we can lift the cup.
Also hoping to lift the cup is Cameroon. Their strong teamwork and heroic goalkeeper Fabrice Ondoa have transformed the squad in their journey towards the final. But in order to be crowned champions, they'll have to break a curse. The last 2 times the side faced Egypt in an Afcon final, they lost.
I think it was 9 years ago that Egypt beat Cameroon. We're not here for revenge, not at all. If we were, we'd not be playing the way we want to. Above all, we want to win this final.
For Cameroon, this could be their 5th Afcon title and the first time they lift the trophy in 15 years. For Egypt, who last took the crown in 2010, it would be a record 8th. 2 titans of African football meet again, but on Sunday evening in Libreville, only one can emerge victorious.
Before the Afcon final, Ghana go head-to-head with Burkina Faso in the 3rd place playoff on Saturday. Sticking with sports, next week we visit a football academy set up in a Kenyan slum. That's all from us at Africa Weekly. Until next week.